Hi and welcome to another art journal with Wilna. I am very happy to be back. It's summer and I have put up one of these little videos a couple weeks ago, and I hope that I can do the other three fairly quickly. So for this art journal series, I decided to work with washes, and more specifically watercolor washes. So you can see there how the watercolor react with the gesso. I did prime my page with a little bit of gesso, and when you paint with watercolors over gesso, you can see how it sits on top of the page, because the gesso makes this little barrier between the page and the paper and the media that prevents the watercolor from seeping into the paper. So it's not good or bad, it's just different, right? And this is what I love about this look. So sometimes it's just fun to experiment on different surfaces to see how the watercolor react to different textures and media. So I am using a flat brush, and I'm going to go with a little bit darker color, just paint over it. And again, you can see how it's almost like the gesso surface resist the watercolors. I must say that my paintbrush is fairly wet, and it's interesting when I teach in real life classes that the students find it very hard to understand if I say use a wet brush, right? So if you are painting along, make sure that your brush is really wet, because that way you get the paint drop effect. So here you can see a perfect example of the watercolors dried and that beautiful paint drop effect. And now I'm using a stencil from the class that I currently have on sale, the art journal class. I created the stencil with my silhouette cameo, and I'm just using light molding paste and just scraping it through the stencil like you would butter a piece of bread. And you can't really see the stencil because it's white, but once it's dry and we paint over it, it's going to come to life, right? So you just have to trust me on that. Yeah, like I said, it's very interesting to me to see the difference between teaching a real life class and how some concepts takes literal explanation before it sinks in. I'm just cleaning my stencil here with a baby wipe, just scraping off most of the molding paste, and now it's ready to use again. And I use these stencils over and over again, so you can use them more than once. Again, I think my favorite thing about the watercolor washes on the gesso is just the way the paint drops dry. And now I'm using some acrylic ink, and you can see it's a whole different thing when you add the acrylic wash to the paper. Acrylics is not intimidated by gesso, and it's just lovely how opaque it is on the gesso, but also lovely transparent, so you can still see what's happening on the layers below it. I also love using my embossing tool to dry the layers. So I think my love for layers and this specific type of layering where you can see the layer beneath the color, the top color, comes from my work with Photoshop. Because in Photoshop you can adjust the opacity of each layer, so you can actually see what's happening below. And I think very subconsciously I always want to see what's happening below, and I wish I could control the opacity of each layer a little bit more. But working with washes is probably the closest that you can get to layering your page in a way that you can see what's happening below the page in regards of texture and washes and color. So it's just a fun way to do it, and it's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. You can see my inks are getting low, the bottles are getting empty. So it's probably almost time for me to go and stock up My problem is just that I have to take the empty bottles with me to Michael's because I forget which ones I need to buy, and then I have like 6 cerulean blues. So now I'm adding one more layer, and this one is a darker Viridian green. Love it. Wet brush, a big brush, and I'm just adding a little bit of water, and then I'm letting the paint run. So not overthinking it. Again, you can see exactly what's happening on the layers below. So it's just this layering of washes on top of a wash on top of a wash. And I really think it creates a very rich feel to it. I don't know what you think, but if I look at this page, this is the idea that I get, is that there's a lot of depth in the color alone. And now I'm using Mod Podge just to add my illustration. I love using illustrations on my art journal pages. It just gives it a focal point for me. It gives it it's like a road map. It gives it that final destination. And sometimes the illustration helps in dictating how the rest of the page will turn out. I like using a little Mod Podge underneath the illustration to paste it on the page, and then I also like to use a little on top of it just to prevent further drops of paint being sucked into the paper, and this way I can also clean it. So if I splash paint on it, you can just wipe it off with a little baby wipe. So I love using just our off-white white. So I'm going to use the white acrylic with a splash of yellow, even though here you won't really see it, will still look pretty white, but I like the warm tone of white. So that's just a personal preference, right? And now I'm going to do what I call just a little cleanup. Okay, so I have 3 rules when I teach when I teach in real life art journaling classes. And it's something that I don't think I've verbalized really on YouTube. But the one thing is that there has to be like a 1/2 inch more or less border around your page that is clean or relatively clean. If you look at my page, you can see there's a white border around the page. And you know what? That's just a practical thing when you work in a book, so that the paint and the media doesn't bleed onto the other pages. The second thing is there has to be white space or calm space for your journaling, meaning that there's no texture on the page and it's relatively calm, so that a black pen can show up on it. And then the last rule is not really a rule, it's just like for me personally, is not to put your illustrations at an angle. It just drives me nuts. I think it's just because I'm a photographer and the horizon always needs to be straight. It's just a personal thing. So I promise you, if you send me your pages and your illustrations or is at an angle, I promise I won't deduct points for you. Now I'm just adding that little pop of black. So going back to my scrapbooking years, where that little drop of black paint is just like the perfect final touch to any page. I just love the black pop. And yeah, and you can see again with acrylic inks, I love the acrylic inks, is when the moment you add your embossing tool, there's these little runners, and sometimes they look good, sometimes they're horrible. It depends on what you're looking for on your page. So I don't mind these ones, even though it's almost a little too much for me. So my page is almost done. Honestly, if you want to get into art journaling, I really recommend that you work with me and make pages with me. My pages are simple and easy to duplicate, and that's exactly my whole aim in making these videos, is to make something that you can actually sit and make with me. And you know what? You make with me until you find your own voice. So it's never a thing of copying. you just keep on working at it until you find your own style, find what works for you, what you like, and how you want to continue. So that's just my little tip for the day for you. So in my last online class that I did, it's an art journaling class. It's a beautiful class. It's called Paint and Prayers. You can just watch till the end, and I'll have a little clip up for you how you can get into this workshop. I discovered that I really like spray paint. So tapping into my inner graffiti artist here, working with a little spray paint, black and white. That's the extent of my palette at the moment. And then I'm just going to use these little stencils again that I created. I made them in the Silhouette Cameo software, and I cut them with the machine, and I just used watercolor paper. So nice and thick paper, do a double cut, and these stencils, you can make your own ones, so you can have like words that works for you, speaks to you, and in the end, it's something that you can use over and over and over again, right? So that's just like the coolest thing. So just watch what I do, like just spritz the paint, and there you can see the lovely texture it creates on the page. The biggest thing with stenciling and spray paint is if the stencil lifts up on your page, you will have more of a blur. So you can play with that. It's actually quite cool. And then this cool stencil that I also made with my Silhouette Cameo, and you can see I've used it multiple times, just different textures and markings. And usually what I would have done is I would go in with a small paintbrush and start doing these little marks, but let me tell you, it's way easier to just spray it on, and it's a lot more fun too, and I think it looked cool. I really like the look of it. So what a fun page to make. I hope you like my little videos. Subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss when I upload. And I really want to upload the next, this one and then 2 more fairly soon. So I think I'm going to finish editing all these today and schedule them on YouTube just to go live at different times. And then I love the Army font. Lately it's one of my favorite fonts, and I'm just going to use a couple words again from that workshop that I created, and then I'm just going to spray. Love it. So you can actually see the final page in the next slide with the art journaling on it, and then after that I will just show you a little preview of my class. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon on the interwebs. Bye.